Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Gokula Nanda Radha Gokula Nanda Radha Gokula Nanda Shri Radhe Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Srila Prabhupada Shri Radha Gokulananda ki, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Srila Jagat Guru Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Pramanande. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna everyone, for those that are present in the temple room and those that are watching online. So this evening we're having the Bhagavad Gita class. From chapter 18, but before I continue, we'll just start with a short prayer. Om Gyana Timandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada Ki, Winter Book Marathon 2022 Ki. Hare Krishna, so we'll be reading from the glorious Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 8, text 8. It's been a while, or maybe a week or two, since I've given a class, and I always feel that it's such a difficult thing, but also such a purifying thing to be in front of wonderful devotees, senior devotees, very well learned and advanced devotees, to speak in front of them. But as I understand, it is also for our own purification, so I seek for all the prayers and blessings of all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Vanchakalpa Tarubhishcha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Anantakoti Vaishnavindaki. As the Winter Book Marathon has commenced, I am starting to slowly digest how incredible the Gita is, and how much it really has and can offer every single one of us the benefit in our lives. So today's class is not so much philosophical, but just reflections based on this particular verse. It's been a very busy day, so I've had to really just sit down for less than an hour and just jot together some sort of reflections and meditation. So I hope in some sense it will be beneficial and useful and resourceful. Hare Krishna. So I'll read the Sanskrit for this particular chapter, and then the translation, the transliteration, and the translation. Trying my best as always with Sanskrit. Dukkam iti eva yat karma kaya lesha bhayat yajet sakritva rajasam tyagam neva tyaga phalam labet. Dukkam iti eva yat karma kaya lesha bhayat yajit sakritva rajasam tyagam neva tyaga phalam labet. Dukkam iti eva yat karma kaya lesha bhayat yajit sakritva rajasam tyagam neva tyaga phalam labet. Do you want to have a go? Okay. Maybe on your phone. So, chapter 18, text 8. And for those that are watching online, perhaps maybe you can also have a go. Whenever you're ready. Otherwise, it's fine. We can just read the translation. Yeah, try it. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. It's always nice to read the Sanskrit, and even if we can't, just to try our best. So we'll read the transliteration. Follow, please. Dukam, unhappy. Iti, thus. Eva, certainly. Yat, which. Karma, work. Kaya, for the body. Lesha, trouble. Bayat, out of fear. Tyajat, gives up. Sa, he. Kritva, after doing. Rajasam, in the mode of passion. Tyagam, renunciation. Na, not. Eva, certainly. Tyaga, of renunciation. Phalam, the results. Labit, gains. Translation. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. One who is Krishna consciousness should not give up earning money out of fear that he is performing fruitive activities. If by working one can engage his money in Krishna consciousness, or if by rising early in the morning one can advance his transcendental Krishna consciousness, one should not desist out of fear or because such activities are considered troublesome. Such renunciation is in the mode of passion. The result of passionate work is always miserable. If a person renounces work in that spirit, he never gets the result of renunciation. So again, translation. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in a mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. So as I've mentioned, just want to share some reflection. It was a very sort of a quick prep. But as I was reading this particular verse, one thing that really came to my mind is, what is the occupational duty of the living entity? That was the question that arose. So we understand that the nature of the living entity is to serve. One of the most popular questions that arises nowadays in our community and with many people is that people want to find their dharma. They want to find and what their nature is and what it is that they want to do. And the word dharma in English means religion. And what religion really indicates is faith. And faith can change. Faith can be swayed. One moment we may have faith in Krishna because everything is going so well. And another moment when we're perplexed by life's challenges and difficulties, that faith may wither. But so therefore, more important than faith is actually following what is one's occupational duty, which is to serve. The example, the analogy that Srila Prabhupada gives is the analogy of the fire. What is the dharma of a fire? The dharma of the fire is to burn. The dharma of the snake is to bite. And so therefore, naturally, the dharma of the living entity is to serve. So, and that's why, Srila Prabhupada is so amazing, because when an ashram was established, also what was established with that is sadhana bhakti. the process of following the regulative principle. Often we have people that involve themselves in the community of the devotee, the Vaishnavas, and they want to do a particular service. They may have a particular nature. They may have a particular psychophysical nature. And they may immediately want to jump into what it is that they like. But when that is necessarily the case, what then can happen is that pride can swell up. Pride may develop, this sense of I am in control. This sense of I am doing, this sense of I am leading may develop. So therefore, the process of sadhana bhakti is there, because by following sadhana bhakti, we're actually able to connect with who we naturally are without losing humility, without losing a sense of appreciation and connection with the Supreme Lord. So sadhana bhakti is really important. And sadhana bhakti also gives us a process of a prayojan, a destiny, a destination, by following that process. So therefore it's really important. Once a social scientist, what he said is that the most dangerous thing in this world is a person with no sense of vision and direction. So therefore, the fundamental and most important thing that we can start with first understanding is who are we? We're an Atma, we're a spirit soul. And then what is the process in understanding that self-realization, which is sadhana bhakti? And then what is the prayojan? What is the destination? So these are very important elements of things to understand. And it's really important to understand this, because without understanding this, then what happens is that we can become diverted. We can become distracted. Actually, it's quite amazing that often we think that through practicing the process of Krishna consciousness, we naturally develop saintly qualities, and that may be the case. But if our internal development does not match with our external progress, then there can be a tendency to think that we're at a certain stage in our spiritual life when we are necessarily not. So therefore, it's really important to introspect. It's really important to evaluate. Not just evaluate how much progression we're making and how much service we're doing and how much rounds we're chanting and how much we're reading, but also how much of that are we actually digesting? How much of that is maturing within us? How much of that is developing within us? Otherwise, if we are not conscious of this, what happens is that we very much stay within the realm, within the arena of our impulsive self, rather than our spiritual self, our reflective self. So it's really, really important. Progressiveness doesn't necessarily always mean the case of how much further am I going, but more so importantly than that, how much deeper am I getting? And yes, it's nice that, when we come into Krishna consciousness, we may already have an idea or clue of what particular service we want to get into, what particular nature that we may have. But it's important that we actually develop a spiritual foundation before we can do so. Because that spiritual foundation will be what will support us in being able to sustainably progress forward with humility. And the analogy, the example that that can be given is, for example, a piano student. A piano student has to go through has to understand that there is a process, and that process must be followed. And once that process is followed accurately, then they're able to express themselves. They're able to flow. They're able to play as they want to. And so therefore, often people may think that, what we're doing is very rigid. It's very rigid, like waking up early in the morning, taking bath, coming into the temple room at 3:30 in the morning. The people may think, I want to be free. I want to be able to express myself. I want to be able to be who I am and do what I feel I want to do. But how is it possible to express yourself if you don't know yourself? And so therefore a process is there not to make you rigid, but to make you natural. When you understand the process and then you follow the process, then you naturally develop a taste for the process. And then that taste then manifests into an expressiveness. You may have a particular service that you're drawn to. You may have a particular nature. You may have a particular skills. And then you understand, how can I center Krishna around this? Rather than centering my own sense enjoyment. And believe me, that is also something that devotees must be mindful of. We must be mindful of that. Sometimes we may be executing all of the correct processes externally, but internally, are we actually doing it for Krishna? Are we genuinely doing it for Krishna? Or is that some sort of a facade that we think we're doing it for Krishna, but really and truly we're not? So that's also very important to remember. And then we must understand that in order to be able to avoid anything, we must understand the characteristic and nature of that particular thing. So what is the nature, or what is the characteristic of the mode of passion? You know, in the Gita it mentions that one who is in the mode of passion is always hankering, always yearning, constantly wanting for more. And one that is in the mode of passion are always identifying themselves with their body. When we identify ourselves with the body, then what happens is that we naturally then relate to the outside world on a bodily identification. And it's quite interesting, quite a few challenges may arise in a situation like that. And I really want to share this, and it's really nice and so important. When we identify ourselves with the body, challenges that we may experience, challenges that we may come across, is that we may develop the tendency just to go with the flow based on what we know. So, you know, as I always say, that we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So that's one of the sort of challenge that we may experience, that we all have certain limiting beliefs, certain conditionings, certain sort of restrictions. And so when we just see ourselves as our mind and our body, then we become encapsulated by those restrictions, by those challenges, by those difficulties. Not only that, we also then become influenced by our environment, by people, by situations. So therefore, rather than giving association, rather than finding positive associations and positive influences, we are naturally drawn to whatever seems and feels pleasurable in the moment, but then later on tends to become poisonous. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, it says what is nectar in the beginning can be poisonous in the end. And then finally, the tendency to do things for personal desires, needs, and motivation. Whether that may be in our material life or even in our devotional life, that everything is a calculated step in how I can enjoy, how I can be happy, how I can seek out for the most pleasure. So these are some challenges that we come face to face with when we identify ourselves with on a bodily platform. So basically fruitive activity. And that sort of mentality actually stagnates our ability to be able to elevate our consciousness. And that's what really Krishna consciousness is. It's a process to elevate the consciousness, to be able to connect with who one really is and establish one's relationship with Krishna. So, what Shishi Radha Gokulananda ki, Shishi Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Shishi Gaur Nitai ki. So, sadhana bhakti is a really beautiful process because we have what is an impulsive aspect of ourselves, and then we have a reflective aspect of ourselves. The impulsive aspect of ourselves is influenced by the mind, body, and senses. So, we're always, whatever we think about influences what we feel, and it influences our action, and then it influences the desire to fulfill a certain satisfaction. That is the impulsive aspect of ourselves. But then beyond the impulsive aspect of ourselves, then there's the reflective aspect of ourselves. The reflective aspect of ourselves is the intelligence, the ability to be able to make distinction between what is right and wrong, what will help us to come closer to Krishna, and what will actually bring us further away from Krishna. So sadhana bhakti allows us to, actually reach a state, a meditative state where we can connect with our soul, we can connect with our reflective aspect of self. And then from there onwards, understand, what seems pleasurable now may actually bring us further from Krishna. So what is it that we need to do to be more disciplined? What is it that we need to do to become more self-controlled? What is it that we need to do that may be difficult in the beginning, but then later on will help us to connect with Krishna more? So that is really the beauty of sadhana bhakti. And so therefore it's really important then that, what sadhana bhakti also allows us to do is become situated in our natural position, our original position, which is a spiritual platform. And that spiritual platform is to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Lord and we are subordinate. You see, it's quite interesting, the nature of the soul is naturally to serve anyway. And if we're not serving Krishna, then we're serving our senses. So that's really important to remember. If we're not serving Krishna, then we're naturally wired to seek pleasure in other things. And subconscious, and we don't even necessarily always realize this. Whatever we desire, Krishna ultimately fulfills that. So therefore, if our desire is to enjoy, then Krishna will facilitate opportunities for us to enjoy, but at the cost of getting further away from Krishna. But if our desire is to come closer to Krishna, then we must have some element of surrender. Srila Prabhupada said that, Srila Prabhupada was sharing his own personal story about how when, he was establishing the ISKCON movement and, traveling around the world, he thought that I can sustain my business and at the same time practice Krishna consciousness. But the more dear you are to Krishna, or the more Krishna is dear to you, the more Krishna takes everything away from you. So therefore, all that is left is Him in your life. Serving Him, always thinking of Him, meditating Him, and utilizing everything for His service. Whatever that may be. That doesn't necessarily mean, it basically means adding everything, adding Krishna in every substance, in everything in your life. So therefore, it's really important that, one is situated in the original position. And here's a really beautiful thing. This is a really beautiful poetry that I came across. What does it mean to see Krishna in our life? And I've always mentioned this, to see Krishna as one life. I always use the analogy that, peace is not the absence of chaos, but it's seeing everything in relation to Krishna. Sometimes people's faith in Krishna may weaken because they feel that their prayers are not being answered. And so that's why really the process of sadhana bhakti is really important, because when we pray to Krishna, Krishna will answer our prayer, has answered our prayers, but perhaps maybe necessarily not to the expectation that we're expecting. So here's something very beautiful to think about, those that are watching this online, and even because, even myself, I experience a witherness of faith sometimes when you pray and you feel like things are not working out as it's supposed to work out. But like I said, when we strengthen our faith, or when we strengthen our connection with Krishna, when we strengthen our connection with Shastra, with Srila Prabhupada, with the process of sadhana bhakti, engaged in the right activities, then we start to realize actually everything that is playing out in our life, Krishna is always connected to. Why? So here's a beautiful poetry. I asked for strength that I might achieve. I was made weak that I might learn humbly to obey. I asked for health that I might do greater things. I was given infirmity that I might do better things. I asked for riches that I might be happy. I was given poverty that I might be wise. I asked for power that I might have the praise of men. I was given weakness that I might feel the need of God. I asked for all the things that I might enjoy in life. I was given life that I might enjoy all things. I got nothing that I had asked for, but everything that I had hoped for. Almost despite myself, my unspoken prayers were answered. I am among all men most richly blessed. So Krishna always answers our prayers, but not necessarily the way we expect it, we perceive it, or we want it. He ultimately does what is beneficial for our spiritual life. So therefore, in times of challenges, temptations, and when we want to throw in the towel, that is something very important to remember. Our prayers are always being answered because our prayers is ultimately to come closer to Krishna. But we don't necessarily always recognize that or see that. And Krishna then says that amongst all the greatest yogi, the one that remembers him, that always meditates of him, thinks of him, in whatever situation, not just bad times but also good times, that is a first-class yogi. Our passion increases more and more and more when we fuel the tendency to control more and more and more. So therefore, the process of... So here's another very practical things that we can do. Just bear with me. So a practical thing that we can do... Just bear with me. Is that we realize that actually we're quite insignificant in this world. We realize that the moment that we think that we are in control, emotions overwhelm us, situations overwhelm us, circumstances overwhelm us. So one meditation that we can have is that, we can meditate on different situations and circumstances in our life where we thought we were in control. And what was the result of that? Perhaps maybe something relevant to success, something relevant to failure, something maybe even relevant in our spiritual life, like thinking that, I'm chanting the good rounds. What was the result of that? The result of that is that we just struggled simply more. The tendency to become proud, we've suffered more, we were more perplexed, more challenged, more overwhelmed. But now how can we sort of turn that around? When we start to feel like, actually Krishna's in control, Krishna's there, then what happens is that we develop the opposite feelings, opposite symptoms. So, for example, when it comes to our career, when it comes to our path, if we think that we're in control, we may develop symptoms of pride and complacency. But if we think that if we start to meditate on and think that Krishna's actually in control, then we can develop qualities or symptoms of humility and gratitude. We're grateful to Krishna. We're humbled that actually we're not in control. Krishna's always continuously in control. And failure, for example, if we think that we're in control, we may become depressed and frustrated. Like for instance, going out on books, and we think that actually I'm the one handing out this book is because of my control, my willingness, my this. Then if it doesn't work out the way we want it to work out, then we may become depressed and frustrated. But if we start to see that actually Krishna is in control, then we may learn to accept the situation. We may learn to see how can I improve. We may become even more determined, more conviction, more faith. So you see, whenever we think we're in control, we always develop negative emotions. But when we realize that Krishna is in control, we develop empowering emotions. And those empowering emotions helps us to come closer to Krishna, to connect with Krishna. So this is a very nice meditation that, we can meditate on what are the different aspects of our spiritual life and even material life where we think we're in control, and how we suffer as a result of it. And then how can we flip that around? So therefore we know that Krishna is in control. And as a result of it, that empowers us to continue in our spiritual life with more enthusiasm, with more hope, with more faith. Otherwise, spirituality just becomes ritualistic, and then we take out the spirit. So therefore, by connecting with Krishna in everything that we do, it helps us to become more spiritual. And I think to sort of conclude this very short class, it's also very important that how do we overcome, especially the mode of passion, is that we always kind of connect ourselves with the 5 powerful connection points. And those 5 powerful connection points, one being sadhu sangha. We always associate, we find the right association, positive association, spiritual association. The devotees, bhakti comes from bhakti. So those that have devotion, those that have love, and those that have an attitude of service, we spend our time with them. And we learn from them, we inquire from them, not just spend time with them. More importantly than just spending time is inquisitiveness, inquiring from them. And also, in addition to that, we absorb ourselves in Shastra. We read. Srila Prabhupada has given us so many books, and Srila Prabhupada has said that you'll know the best of me through my books. So reading the books, but even more importantly than reading the books, applying the books. Because by just reading the books, what it is that we become very theoretical. We become very complacent. Yes, we may be reading and learning more, but what's the use in knowledge if there's no application and there's no usage of that? And sharing that. Actually, even more important than knowing is sharing. Because when we share the knowledge, then we realize it ourselves also, what Srila Prabhupada really means in his purports, in his commentary on the translation. What is Krishna really trying to say here? So knowledge alone, we cannot understand much. But by sharing, by giving, by applying, then that knowledge transforms into wisdom. And then chanting, spiritual sign, Nam Kirtan. Chanting the holy name, as we know that in this age of Kali Yuga, we've been given the process of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, and the most potent is actually going out there on the street and sharing the holy name with others. Like, usually on a Saturday night, going out, chanting the holy name. So, yes, book distribution may be difficult for many devotees. People may not take liking to it, but then there's also the process of giving the holy name. Devotees, it may be less intimidating for them by giving the holy names, by chanting. People are listening, they're hearing, and their consciousness is being transformed. So chanting is there. If we engage ourselves in chanting, and we also engage ourselves in being in the Dham, but wherever the holy name is being chanted, wherever Krishna is being glorified, Krishna says, I'm always there. So Dham doesn't necessarily meant to mean just being situated in one place that we're comfortable in. Because actually the business of a devotee is not to be comfortable. The business of a devotee is not to be complacent in where they are at. It's really to take risks in giving the holy name, in sharing this wisdom and knowledge so that therefore it reaches more people and transforms more lives. And when we always engage ourselves in these services, when we engage ourselves in these processes, then we always remain closer to Krishna. We always remain closer to Srila Prabhupada and to the missionary spirit. So it's really important. And so I've noticed and I've really realized in my own life that when we engage ourselves in that missionary spirit, then whatever challenges and difficulties that we're experiencing, we can overcome it. They say that an idle mind is a devil's workshop. So it's really important. This is how we remain closer to Krishna. This is how we remain closer to Srila Prabhupada. And this is how we can take shelter from the modes of material nature. So if anyone has any question, that's the conclusion of this class. So if anyone has a question, please, you can ask. Or any reflection maybe. Yeah. The result of passionate work is always miserable. If a person renounces work in that spirit, he never gets the result of renunciation. Do you want to have a go? Maybe what do you think? What are you meditating on? Hmm? So, but if you read the purport, it doesn't say the result of passionate work for Krishna. It says the result of passionate work is always miserable if a person renounces. So, like Krishna also says in the Gita, what are the symptoms of someone that is working in a mode of passion? They're never satisfied. Their desire is endless, and so in the Sri Ishopanishad, it says that everyone in this world, every living entity, they've been given their quota. They've been given a certain quota. Srila Prabhupada says there's enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. So everyone's given a particular quota, and they work within that quota. And whatever that they've been given, and they work within that framework, they're able to come closer to Krishna. But for the one that is in a mode of passion, they're not happy with what Krishna's given them. They want for more. Yeah. Sense enjoyment. Yes. Yeah, their own false ego, their own sense enjoyment. And if you're naturally serving Krishna, and you're doing you're working for Krishna, you naturally develop qualities of a mode of goodness. Slowly. You naturally reach that stage. I remember when I first joined the temple, I had a very passionate quality also. But over time, what happens is that you kind of mellow out. Yes, there's an aspect of it, like when you go and do a particular service, it requires a particular level of energy, a particular level of enthusiasm. But ultimately, majority of the time, you're doing things in a mode of goodness. Just like, they say when you put a rod to a fire, what happens? That rod develops qualities of a fire. So therefore, when you're serving Krishna, when you're serving the devotees, you develop similar qualities to the saintly devotees. You're welcome. Any other question? Okay. Thank you so much. Antaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Winter Book Marathon 2022 ki. Hare Krishna.
Charine, Nirvisesa Sunyavadi, Paskasya de Satarine, Jaya Jaya Gora Chande Arati ko Sobha Janavi Tata Bani Jagamana Lobha Jaya Jaya Gora Chande Arati Kusobha Chanavi Tata Bane Jagamana Lobha Jagamanalo Dakine Nitai Chan Mamegadadhara Nikate Advaita Singh Vasa Chatradhara Nenitai Chan Mamegadadhara Nikate Advaita Singh Vasa Chatradhara Ase Gora Chan Ratna Simhasana Arati Korena Brahma Adi Devagane यासे गोरा चंद रत्न सिंहासन आरती करे ना ब्रह्मा आदि देवागाने यासे गोरा चंद रत्ना सिंहासन आरती करे ना ब्रह्मा आदि देवागाने आदि देवागाने नारा हरि आदि गोरी चमरा दुलाला संजया मुकुंद भासु आदि देवागाने नारा हरि आदि गोरी चमरा दुलाया संजया मुकुंद भासु गोस आदि गाया शंका बाजे घंटा बाजे बाजे करताला मधुरा मृदंगा बाजे परमा रसाला बाजे घंटा बाजे बाजे करताला मधुरा मृदंगा बाजे परमा रसाला शंका बाजे घंटा बाजे मधुर 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 बाजे 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 मधुर 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 बाजे मधुर 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 बाजे हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल काय गोरा हरि बोल निताय गोरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गोरा हरि बोल Baho koti chandragini vadana ujjwala gala dese vana mala kore jala mala Baho koti chandragini vadana ujjwala gala dese vana mala kore jala mala Shiva Sukha Narada Premi Gada Gada Bhakti Vinoda Dete Gorara Sampada Shiva Sukha Narada Premi Gada Gada Bhakti Vinoda Dete Gorara Sampada Gorange Arati ko Shobha Jaga Jana Mana Lobha 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 Jaga Jana Mana Lobha Jaga Jana Mana Lobha Jaya Goranitay Jaya Goranitay Goranitay Jaya Goranitay Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gora Hari Bol, Nitai. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasati. Gora Bhaktivedanta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasati Gora Bhaktivedanta Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol, Jai Gora Hari Bol, Jai जय उस बात पर हम सब इसका चार्य स्तोत्र श्री भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई महात्मा ठाकुर की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य शिला हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्णा गोपा गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की नवदी धाम की गंगा माई की जमुना माई की तुलसी देवी की भक्ति देवी की सामा वेता भक्तवृंद की निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे all glories are similarities, all glories are similarities, all glories are similarities, all glories to Sri Guru and all. Hare Krishna, so we'll be the Nrsimhadev prayers now. Hare Krishna.
જ્વારો જેવો જ છે ને આ બેઠો એ જો એની ટૂટી કરી છે આખો વાર કાઢી નાખેલા છે ટોટલી જસ્ટ ચૂંટી ગયો જરા માખણ ખાવું લે માખણ ખાવું ચલ માખણ ખાવું isn't it? And long to double and
More juicy.